Good Tuesday morning, everyone. Welcome back. You're watching the Kaiser Report, and I'm John, and I'm coming to you today with Kaiser. It's here on the couch to talk to you about a few things that are going on and the threat right now of us staring down the barrel of a World War III. Given the fact that Joe Biden has released his little friend Zelensky to go ahead and use the armaments that we had told them not to do, the long-range ballistic missiles that are reaching into main areas in Russia that we now know that Putin is very, very upset about. And we are once again on the precipice of going into a world war as a result of his parting decision to go ahead and release them to use these weapons. Not a good situation, and I hope that the president-elect is on board with talking to all the parties, including Kim Jong-un, because he has dispensed troops to Russia to work alongside of Russia in this skirmish, and that's not a good situation because we're looking at two nations that have nuclear capabilities that are not good for any part of this earth as it exists now, and we need to pray to God that they don't decide to use these things as a result of a man that can't find his place in pictures with other world leaders, and then more embarrassment coming yesterday from when they couldn't find him for pictures and he wasn't in it because he was on the other side of a palm tree. It's hard to believe that we have this man doing this, but it's happening, and we have a guy here that has his fingers supposedly on the nuclear buttons, and it's not a good situation when someone is suffering from dementia to that point where he can't figure out his spot to have his picture taken in, and then so on and so on. So just take a quick look here.
The US President Joe Biden has authorized Ukraine to use American long-range missiles to strike targets deep inside Russia.
Until now, Mr. Biden has been reluctant to give permission because of concerns about the conflict escalating. Our correspondent David Willis reports now from Washington.
The aftermath of the latest missile attack on Ukraine, Russia's largest in months. This, the city of Sumy, near the Russian border, after a missile hit a residential area, killing 10 people and injuring many more. As President Biden arrived in Rio for the G20 summit, reports emerged of new US measures to help Ukraine defend itself. Authorization from the outgoing leader for the use of long-range, American-made guided missiles capable of striking deep into Russian territory. Potentially a significant development in the conflict, and one President Zelensky has been calling for months.
Today,
many in the media say that we have received permission to take appropriate actions. But strikes are not made with words. Such things are not announced. The missiles will speak for themselves, definitely.
President Biden's decision followed the arrival last month of around 10,000 North Korean special forces sent to help Russia reclaim territory lost to Ukraine in the Kursk region of eastern Russia. Known as ATACMS, these U.S. Army tactical missile systems have a range of almost 200 miles and are difficult to intercept because they travel at such high speeds. President Biden is keen to do all he can to help Ukraine in the little time he has left in office. He'd resisted authorizing the use of American long-range missiles up to now for fear of antagonizing Russia. But with winter approaching and Russia advancing, Retaining territory taken in the east could provide Ukraine with a bargaining chip in the event of future peace talks. David Willis, BBC News, Washington.
Isn't it ridiculous that after all this time, the 4 years that he's been in power, that he pulls this now, a scant 60-some days before he has to depart office. And it's not a good situation to be in for the world, for the United States, for Europe, and the like. And it's a matter of time before something is going to be joined into by China, and they're going to be looking even more like a buffet when they see Taiwan under this regime that we have in now. And I believe the only thing stopping it is our newly elected or re-elected President Trump, which he may have something up his sleeve already, or maybe has talked to these leaders and try to talk them down off the ledge before we end up into a war that is not going to be a good war to be in.
You hearing this?
So anyway, people in Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court has told them to stop on 2 occasions of re-going through all of these ballots, trying to save a seat for the state with ballots that have been deemed not usable due to the fact that either the envelopes were marked wrong or they weren't dated or signed properly. And the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania has said emphatically, stop the counting. They cannot be counted. And they went ahead and did it anyway. Well, yesterday they made another decision, and the governor, Shapiro, came out and said, stop the counting. So finally we have McCormick is on his way, I guess, and the other guy still has not conceded but should. And I know all about the margin of error and the recounts and all of this stuff, but you can't add ballots into a recount that weren't counted in the first place. And it's just common sense that you don't do that. But here we go. And I think that it's going to be over and done with finally. So we've got that going for us.
Nearly 2 weeks after Election Day, and the Pennsylvania Senate race is still not settled. GOP challenger Dave McCormick ahead of incumbent Democrat Bob Casey by less than 0.5%, triggering an automatic recount under state law. A court battle erupting over mail-in ballots. Weeks before the election, the state Supreme Court ruled mail-in ballots with a missing or incorrect date could not be counted. Election officials in at least 4 counties, Bucks, Philadelphia Center, and Montgomery, openly defying that ruling. In Bucks County, the Democrat-led Election Commission Board voted to count 405 ballots with date errors.
Precedent by a court doesn't matter anymore in this country, and people violate laws anytime they want. So for me, if I violate this law, it's because I want a court to pay attention to it. And there is nothing more important than counting votes.
The blatant flouting of the law sparking outrage. The liberal Washington Post editorial board saying Democrats are thumbing their nose at the rule of law, calling it, quote, corrosive to democracy. Conservative commentator Jonathan Turley writing in an op-ed that Democrats are dropping any pretense of protecting democracy over partisanship.
Essentially, this is election denialism of the kind that Democrats have been attacking Donald Trump for doing in the past.
Dave McCormick's campaign now suing the county, demanding it obey the state Supreme Court ruling. Pennsylvania's other senator, Democrat John Fetterman, downplaying the Democratic counties flouting the courts.
It's very, very close, and I guarantee you, if Dave McCormick were in the opposite situation where he was down 15 to 17,000 votes, he would absolutely want to have every last vote counted as well, too. And Bob Casey has never claimed fraud.
Amid the recount drama, Dave McCormick attended last week's new senator orientation on Capitol Hill. Pennsylvania counties must hand in the results of the recount by November 27th.
And then the other big news is that, we have a visit that took place yesterday with Morning Joe and Mika. Went down to Mar-a-Lago and met with the president, and supposedly they were going to be talking more about the president in a positive note rather than just talking about the president. They're going to be talking with the president, and that was the big revelation by Mika this morning on that. So let's take a look here.
This is not a reach. I could go back and talk about Nazi Germany, and I do it without any concerns whatsoever. And if people can't start drawing the parallels, well, you're just stupid, or you have your head in the sand, or you're one of them.
Joe and I went to Mar-a-Lago to meet personally with President-elect Trump. Joe and I realized it's time to do something different. And that starts with not only talking about Donald Trump, but also talking with him.
Well, that strikes me very interesting at best, that they're out there and talking about talking more with Trump rather than against Trump. And he's just a political prostitute, in my estimation. And his wife is a dyed-in-the-wool communist, and we know this. And she manages to get her views in every now and then, but there you go. Anyway, the other news is that we continue to look at the cabinet picks, and the left-hand aisle is going nuts over some of these cabinet picks, and we'll have to see where it all ends up during the confirmation hearings, or I don't know what to expect from the left that's in there wounded and scared and worried about losing their cushy jobs, etc., etc. It's not a good situation. But what worries me more than anything else is the world looking on to see how this power of transition will take place and how much of a loss or gain we're going to have with regard to getting back to common sense and getting back to being the world leader that we always have been. And God bless them all. They need to get right with everything, and if they have been scooped up and caught in something that was illegal, then they should have to pay the price. Talking about illegality, here is the day has come when Judge, I never met a camera I didn't like, Merchan in New York, is going to finally make a decision on the crooked trial that he set over and was supposed to be doing sentencing today. Well, let's hope that he comes to his senses and stops all the nonsense that took place there with the AG that was so crooked. And it is on appeal anyway, and the appeal courts are not going to look at this thing favorably. We know that. So let's just put an end to it, Merchan. You've had your 15 minutes in the sun and the limelight. Back off and do something right for a change, and tell your AG to get off the dime and move on. We know it was a political weaponized stunt to bring him into these court trials in the first place, and it was done extremely for one reason and one reason only, to keep him off the election trail or the campaign trail, and also bankrupt him so he didn't have the cash to continue on with the campaign that they were so afraid of losing to, and did lose to that campaign. Which means that 70-some million people in these United States have said to you, we don't want any more of this. We want Donald Trump. And therein lies the reasoning for just dismissing this BS case that was brought up for Judge Marchand and his daughter to make money on, and no one's looking at that when we don't look at the left side and the benefits to the left side for all of the lawfare that had taken place against Donald Trump and his family and his corporations. Let's not just leave that out, because it's important. They tried to destroy a man, and when that didn't work, they even tried killing him and proponing people to go out and do damage to him, because their rhetoric drives the weak-minded individuals that may think that what they or she or he hears on MSNBC is the God's honest truth, and it isn't. All legacy media whipped people up to believe if you vote for Donald Trump, it's the end of democracy. If you vote for Donald Trump, you're putting in an emperor. If you vote for Donald Trump, you're resurrecting Hitler. If you vote for Donald Trump, you're a part of the Nazi Party. Where do they come up with this kind of lies and nonsense? We don't know. It comes out of their imagination, and anything that will stop Donald Trump is what they tried to do, and they lost. It did not work. It backfired on them in most cases, and they need to make these BS law cases that they're holding up now in mainstream media go away, because they were not valid in the first place, and we know that. And as far as the porn stars that wanted to make money on this deal, they have done that for themselves. As far as the crooked attorneys that helped the porn stars make money on this, they're done. They're finished. And we all know now the entire country has opened their eyes, and they have seen what we have been victims of propaganda all along through this whole election cycle, the past election cycle. And if you haven't been asleep for the last 3 3/4, 4 years, actually longer if you go back to the Obama years. But anyway, here's the deal. It's come out now, and it's clear, and it's present in front of all of us after this election, and looking at the numbers of 76 million votes for one side and so on and so on. If you add all this up and then you ask yourself, how in the world did Joe Biden ever get 81 million votes? It doesn't balance, and it doesn't add up. So we know now that the 2020 election was tilted to one side by the Democratic Party and their absentee ballots and their mail-in ballots that were delivered in the middle of the night to be counted in. Because if you look at the electoral numbers in the United States, and if you add them all up, it's impossible for Joe to have garnered that amount of votes, and the other side got what they got, and that election, in my estimation, was a non-valid election or a stolen election. And the result of that in the last 4 years is the turmoil that we're going through right now economically, with fuel, an open border that let in 20+ million people for the sake of getting a new voter base. This is not a good thing at all. And this is what took place when you have a Biden-Harris administration running loose as a goose with no accountability to anyone. They have weaponized every three-letter agency that we have, and they've done it. And now it needs to be fixed, and it needs to be undone, and we need to get back to normalcy in this country, which I feel, in my heart of hearts, is coming now. You see it in people's faces. You see it in people's smiles. And the left that is going loony and nuts over everything else is being forgotten right now, because we don't want to hear about who shaved their heads and who did this and who's withholding this, that, and the other thing. They're trying to say that this election was driven by misogyny and racist. And, well, here, just take a look at this.
What a shocker that the people who see everything through the lens of race and sex see their election loss as a result of racism and sexism. Yes, if only we weren't so irredeemably unenlightened, we would have elected a black president by now. Oh, what, we did? Asked if racism is built into our society. White progressives agreed with that at higher levels than black and Hispanic people. They don't want your pity. And black people can't afford to indulge rich white people's need to endlessly flagellate themselves.
Well, what do y'all think? I just, I know that as a country, it's very difficult for people to believe that racism and misogyny, they're just alive and well. I think that we don't want to think that about ourselves, our neighbors, our friends, but it's my lived experience tells me that it does still exist.
Is that so?
My lived experience tells me that it does still exist.
Nigga, please. Nigga!
Hello, I'm Sunny Hostin, and welcome to my home.
Oh. Well, I find that the African-American experience for me has been, for the most part, very good.
And I cook all the time. I love to cook. So for me, it was really important to have a very big stove.
It's very difficult for people to believe that racism and misogyny, they're just alive and well. I think that we don't want to think that about ourselves, our neighbors, our friends. But it's my lived experience tells me that it does still exist.
Oh, this place is ugly anyway. You and me, we're family.
Promise never to drift away.
Oh, boy, this is living, huh?
You ain't black.
So I guess there isn't a lot of truth about what The View has to say about misogyny and racistness and all of that comes out of their mouths at The View, and why The View has the following that they have is beyond me, because it's a joke. It's worse than what Oprah pulled over your eyes, and this bunch is doing the same thing. And now all of the nonsense that came up last week where Whoopi Goldberg tried to cancel a bakery that has been a family business for 140 some years was ridiculous, and she's still sitting there trying to convince you that she's smarter than you and knows more and that you should go along with everything that she has to say. Well, that's not a good situation at all. We need to get back more into common sense thinking and listen to people on this platform, Rumble, Truth Social, places of that nature where you can go and feel comfortable to say what you really think and not have to hide from anybody. Are there nasty people there that will come back at you? Absolutely. Just tell them God bless you and thank you and move on and block them if you have to. But there is a lot of common sense thinking here. You have, shows like Redacted and this program and other programs that are here, Russell Brand, and these people have been telling you the truth all along and feel somewhat vindicated now that the election is over and the people have woke up and the people have voted what their feelings really are. And we will move forward through this transition and through the next 4 years of seeing things revitalized throughout this nation, and our presence around the world will revitalize as well. Because they certainly have been looking at a dementia-ridden man that they cannot deal with, and its underlings and unelected officials that are in the White House that are making the decisions for this man. It's so obvious and in your face that you can't miss it. So I wish him a wonderful retirement. He needs to go and sit on the beach, Joe, and just to go and enjoy yourself and don't make any more decisions that'll put us into a war. On here, Taco Tuesday in November, where we're facing Thanksgiving, and Thanksgiving is coming up. So let me give you a few sage pieces of advice about Thanksgiving. If you have people coming to your Thanksgiving dinner that don't agree with you politically, let politics off the table. Don't get into it. And if they are far left and they have different views than we have, accept it for the day and give thanks that you don't feel that way, and then everything will be fine. And also, when you pick out your foodstuffs for Thanksgiving, try to stay healthy. Try to get better quality food that doesn't have a lot of additives or GMOs attached to it, such as, your vegetables and tomatoes. And if you're shopping for a turkey, try to find an all-natural turkey that's not been injected with all kinds of junk to make the taste of the bird better. Because if you cook it properly, there's nothing better than a fresh roasted turkey. Do it organically if you can. It's better for you. And keep in mind that you have to mind your stores as well going up to the inauguration and beyond, because we don't know with the amount of terrorists that are in this country right now when we will see something happen that's not going to be good for this country. So protect yourself. Don't be traveling around and not paying attention to what's going on around you, because these gang members that have come out of Argentina are ever present, and they're here in East Tennessee now. They're been reported in Knoxville and Maryville and Chattanooga, Nashville, and of course Memphis. So be ever present when you're out and about of any lurking individuals, or don't put yourself into harm's way out running by yourself or anything of that ilk that will get you noticed by one of these bad gang members out of this Argentinian gang. It's mind-boggling how many are here and entrenched that we don't know about. So until Holman gets on and gets the place cleaned up and people back where they belong in the prisons that they came out of, then we'll be a better place and a safer place. And safety is always important, especially when you're out doing the grocery shopping around Thanksgiving and for Christmas shopping. If you're in malls or places where you have a parked car and you have goods that you're coming out of a store with, get it put into the trunk post haste, get in the car and open the door back for no one, for no reason, and get out of there. Because you can be accosted in a parking lot in broad daylight now with no abandon on these idiots' parts that are out there as gang members to take what you have, including your car, and in some cases, your life. So be ever vigilant when you're out shopping. And if you're getting into a dark area, now it's dark at 5:30 at night, so be careful. We love you, and we don't want to miss any of our subscribers because of a tragedy like that. So with that, we're going to say have a great rest of the Tuesday. And remember, stay safe, stay strong, and stay tuned to the Kaiser Report for your commentary and bits of news and tours when we can. Bye-bye now.